we have so many potential topics to touch on with between dietless life, children, and neurodivergence. And so on today's video, I wanted to just do an interview with you about ADHD and getting things done and being able to sort of focus and accomplish things in life while having ADHD. So first question would be, how do you define ADHD?
For me, ADHD it's your brain working in a different way to neurotypical people. So we all have different levels of executive functions, and with people with ADHD, there's a few kind of neurological connections that are underdeveloped or not there when it comes to executive functions. So there are things like being on time for meetings and appointments, or being able to complete a project all in one go, emotional control. There's all these executive functions that we learn as we grow up through our childhood and into adulthood. And for people with ADHD, they struggle to learn those things because those connections are not in their brain.
Amazing. And what's your background with this? Why are you passionate about this?
So I am a trained executive functions coach, specializing in ADHD particularly, but I also work in other neurodiversity areas such as ASD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and things along that line.
Was there a particular experience or person or even yourself in life that got you so interested in this? Like, what was the particular experience or memory that you think kind of put you on this path to working with this type of person?
Two people, really. I have a long-term coaching client who I've worked with for a couple of years, who, a few months into our coaching together, we thought it might be a good idea for her to go and have an assessment for some type of neurodiversity. And she was diagnosed with autism at the age of 15. And that was quite challenging for her. And through working with her and our kind of close connection already, I really felt like it was important for me to learn what she needed, what her particular brain actually needed. And I've also since realized that my daughter, it has ADHD as well.
And what would be the key signs of like a child in particular? This isn't necessarily the main topic, but I'm just curious of them having ADHD. Like because so many people self-diagnose with ADHD. What would you say is the main, and I know it's a gradient and there is no right or wrong in this. It's potential that we're all somewhere on that gradient or that spectrum, right? But where would you say it becomes like a neurodivergent?
So you have two kind of main categories of ADHD. There's the inattentive type and the hyperactive type. So ordinarily people will fit into one of those, or they can be a combined type as well. So, but as you say, Skip, there is a really wide variety. Now, within the executive functions, you'll find that absolutely no one with ADHD is exactly the same either. So they experience varying levels of challenge with varying executive functions. And, so much depends on how they've grown up, what their experience has been like with their ADHD.
And so now, if you were to give me like a really high level bullet point of what's the comprehensive STORM list of, as someone with ADHD, how could I focus and get more done in life? Just give me the high level of it so I can double click on things. So what would you say the bullet points are? If you hit me with like the top 5 things, what can I do right now today to help get more things done?
So there's probably, I think I can narrow it down to 5 top things. The first one would be to narrow down, to make sure that you're not trying to multitask, one thing at a time. That can be really helpful. The second thing is to make a list, to keep a really great list of everything that is on your mind. It doesn't have to be everything that needs to be done. It can just be those thoughts and worries that are popping into your mind as well. Write it all down.
So question on that, the double click is, I'm assuming you mean a written, like handwritten list, because if it's a phone list, multitasking becomes really easy, really fast.
Everybody's different. And, I always like to keep strategies fairly fluid. So it would be absolutely a question for the client. What feels good to you? A written list is my preferred method because I can see it in black and white right there on paper, and I can also kind of take away things as I need to. But I have a lot of clients who really successfully use a number of apps.
Do you have a personal favorite?
Motion is a really popular software for clients to use. One of the things that I find has an enormous impact is getting regular exercise, getting good sleep, and eating well. Those three things together have an enormous impact on the executive functions. If you are not getting good sleep, exercise, and eating well, you'll find that all of your functions are impaired. Another one would be to know your limits, to know when you are not able to focus. Maybe there's some particular situation where it's just not possible for you. Just be able to say, sorry, I just need to stop. I can't do this right now.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. So then let me double click on the health category that you mentioned. So sleep, I get. When it comes to exercise and it comes to nutrition, can you give me some high level on that? Like what's the most effective for being able to get more done in life for someone with ADHD?
Again, exercise is different for everyone. There's one person who might really enjoy running 10Ks every day, and then for another person, a 10-minute walk is perfectly sufficient. So, for me, moving your body, it's just doing something that energizes you and makes you feel good. Preferably, it's getting fresh air as well. But if your thing is going to the gym, that's also totally fine. You're doing what makes you feel good.
And then what about nutrition? Give me like kind of the high level bullet points on that.
High level bullet points would be to cut out or preferably eliminate sugar from your diet and processed carbs. It doesn't help your brain one bit. To make sure you're having a really great varied diet of vegetables, fruit, protein that are brain food, that really help your brain to operate at its best. There's also a number of vitamins and minerals and supplements that can really impact ADHD positively.
Okay, what would be 3 foods that I should eat every single day to help with this?
Particular foods, that's kind of difficult. I'd say fruit and vegetables in a decent variety would be my guidance on that.
Okay, so just whatever I enjoy and just making sure that I get some fruit and some vegetables in every day in any way that I enjoy.
Absolutely. Smoothies are often a great way of getting a wider variety into you as well, and that they taste really good for people who are not that keen on vegetables.
In particular, if I could ask a very specific example, with your daughter and what she's been dealing with, what foods, if any, have made the biggest impact for her?
Without a doubt, cutting down on sugar consumption. Her hyperactivity is off the charts when she has, honestly, anything. It can be a cookie and she is gone for hours.
Got it. And then on the fourth one where you said knowing your limits, do you have any best practices for that? Like how can I start? What does that really mean? Can you give me an example?
This would be a bit of an experiment for any individual. So being able to really pay attention, being mindful of their work style, their triggers, how long they're able to concentrate for, what particular tasks do they find it easier to concentrate on over others. So what I usually do with a client is tell them to make a list. Write down whatever you find is interesting. Write down when you find yourself being distracted and pulled off task, or what sort of events impact you. And we start to build a picture of that particular individual's limits.
Okay, so just kind of start documenting what I see work and not work for myself, and keep that in some sort of centralized place, maybe Moment, the app that you mentioned earlier, right? So that I can sort of build guardrails for myself. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
And, with that, then you're able to advocate for yourself a little more as well. I'm sorry, a 2-hour meeting just is quite challenging for me. I'm going to need a break.
So then I'm going to ask you one final question here that I'm very curious to hear the answer to. With people with ADHD, I think, we know for a fact, right? We're very studied that maybe the most impactful thing long-term for our health in general is community, right? And like connection and friendship. And that can be challenging at times because it's like that sense of belonging and that sense of like people understanding you or like seeing you, it can just get wacky. Do you have any like books or recommendations on how to sort of navigate that?
There's a couple of ways that people with ADHD are impacted in that area. And honestly, a number of my clients, quite a large percentage, deal with social anxiety because of past experiences. And communication can be quite challenging, knowing, and this is super common, when you're in a conversation, they will be constantly worrying about whether they're being annoying, they've said something they shouldn't have said, they're overthinking what they did say, worrying about how they're being perceived, worrying that they're not understanding what the other person is saying. There's so many things. It just can be a total whirlwind to have conversation for someone with ADHD. I think being kind to themselves is usually my top tip. How to grow their own self-confidence back, build their self-esteem. And with that, they're able to sometimes just say, goodness, I think maybe I said something wrong, I'm so sorry. But then to let it go. And it's okay, it's totally fine not to feel judged and to kind of worry about this for days and weeks and months after the event.
So if anyone's watching and listening, that was permission to be more kind to yourself. That was permission. Well, thank you so much. So Again, just to summarize, number one was single task. Really focus on doing one thing at a time. Number two was write everything down, all of your thoughts, all of your ideas, because they will come and go like crazy. So just make sure that they're all being recorded locally in some place, potentially on the app that you recommended. Number three was eat well, which really just means reduce the sugars dramatically and make sure to eat some fruit and some vegetables every day in any way that you enjoy. And then number three is to exercise regularly in any way that you enjoy. Just make sure that you're moving your body, you're sweating, and you're really using some of that energy that you have. And then the fourth one was know your limits and start to document that and maybe get better at creating boundaries for yourself that really respect, what makes you feel good so that you can be less harsh on yourself and you can like really show up in the way that you want to. And then number five is when you don't show up the way that you want to, forgive yourself and be kind to yourself and just communicate more and more with the people that you love and that you care about so that you can live a really great life and have connection whilst also having this neurodivergent superpower of ADHD. So thank you so much, Storm, for coming on and teaching us all that. I look forward to doing so many more of these with you because I know you have such a breadth of experiences and expertise. So maybe next time we'll dig into dietless life and nutrition a bit more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Skip.